All right, everybody, welcome back to the Aptitude Outdoors podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Today, our special guest is Turner Rowland coming on once again. I'll add a link down to his first episode he ever did with him and his brother a few years ago. But Turner's an awesome dude. He's done everything from hunted deer, hunted elk. He's hunted bison. He's gone fly fishing all over the country. He's caught tons of different species of fish. He's been fishing for his whole life, and he is the head of the Waypoint Podcast Network, and he does a lot of cool stuff all the time. He's one of my favorite people to talk to on this podcast. I feel like kind of have a lot in common in our mindset about hunting and fishing, and he's helped me out a lot over the years, which I greatly appreciate. So I hope you enjoy this episode, so let's dive right into it. This is the Aptitude Outdoors podcast, where we interview conservationists, hunters, anglers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the greatest stories, information, and advice from the best in the world. Turner, dude, you've been, since you were on the podcast at the first summit, you've been in the shit. You've been doing a lot of stuff. You've gone from a college kid to running the Waypoint podcast stuff. You got an elk. You're a fly fishing machine. You're living in Wyoming?
Montana. Bozeman. Yeah.
Bozeman. Got a lot of catching up to do. So first thing, man, I want to talk about the elk. I've heard the story last year. You were telling me about it, but was that you said you spent like 5 years trying to kill an elk?
Yeah, 5 years with a bow. I killed an elk with a rifle previously, but with a bow, that was a 5-year journey.
I really like that because my whole shtick is like giving people reality of what hunting is like, because a lot of the stuff, and I mean, we're both in the social media realm. We get it. We see the cool shit all the time. We're privileged in this world. We get to hang out with like ranch fairies here and stuff like this. We get to talk like people that know their shit.
Yeah.
But the reality of hunting for me is like, in my personal hunts, it's hard and it's brutal and it's frustrating. So like when you said it took you 5 years to bow hunt elk, that is really impressive to me, because it's like you have determination, you're not giving up, and you it means a lot to you. So what was that 5 years like? I mean, you had to have just screwed up royally like a million times.
Yeah. Well, there are a few things that you need to kill an elk. You need to be able to find them and get into them. And then you need to be able to get close to one. And then you need to be able to execute a shot. And I was very poor at all three of those. So, for probably 3 years, for 2 years of elk hunting, I never saw an elk, except for once in rifle season when somebody took me. I saw like a 5x5 bull that actually got shot like right in front of me. So it was going from the private land to the public land, and we were set on the public land, like ready to set up. Like the minute this thing jumped the fence, we were going to blast it. It was like 200 yards away. And right before it crossed the fence, it just like dropped. And then some folks came up to it and high-fived, and I was like, damn. So that was my closest call before then. And after just exploring and meeting the right people, you start to get a sense of where the elk like to be, because they really are everywhere. Like I used to hear that all the time. Like, elk are everywhere, and like you just gotta be in the right place. It's like, well, obviously I'm walking around all the wrong places.
Yeah. That's what it feels like every time.
Yeah. I mean, there were multiple seasons where I would hike, hundreds of miles and not see a single elk. And, just 2 days a week, Saturday and Sunday, maybe skip school a couple days too, and go chase elk. And it was really, really difficult to see them. And I remember the first like bugle that I ever heard. It was like a really cool feeling while hunting. You go to the park and hear them all the time. And you start to get into them a little bit. You start to find them. You start to put the work in the off season in the summer, and then notice where they are. What I did is I noticed, I drove around and noticed where their wintering grounds were, and then just kind of like trace them back from there, because they go down from the mountains to the like agriculture, and you can see like, okay, well, this mountain range typically, it looks like it has a higher density than the rest of them. So I'm going to start where they're the most elk, and then as I become more experienced, go to bigger and bigger elk. And so finding them was very difficult. Then once you find them, you're like, okay, well, now that I found them, I can kill them. And that's not the case either, because they move so much. Like the closer you get to killing an elk, the harder it is, because you finally find them and you're like, okay, now that I find them, it's going to be way easier. But then they pop up on that ridge over there, and then they're walking away from you. So you got to sprint over 2 ridges, or mountains, as some people would call them, and then intercept them up there. So you got to sprint 2 miles. And then the wind's not right. And so you got to circle all the way around them and then catch up with them and intercept them. So there are all these variables. And then you have to actually execute the shot. And before I killed something with my bow, I missed like 16 or 17 animals with my bow. That's something, you probably have experienced a little bit of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. I had severe target panic to where
it's easy to do.
Yeah. I could, even on a target, like just a block target, I could not get my pin to the target. What I would do is I would bump up real quick and hammer the trigger. I was shooting an index finger. And it took a really long time of very focused concentration in order to hover that pin and slowly pull through my shot and break my shot. And so after I got done with target panic and I finally overcome that, then we started to get into some real world-class elk hunting. And it's there. You just have to find it. And in this case, it was, hour and a half away from the nearest town. Yeah. But that's where they were. So that's where we went. And it was it was just a journey, man. It was a 5-year journey. And when it finally happened, it was really overwhelming and spiritual. Like both me and my dad were like just crying.
Yeah, dude. It's when you put 5 years into something, that's of course.
Yeah.
It's brutal. And to be there with your dad, that's sweet.
Yeah. It was really cool, man. And so he was right behind me when I shot the thing, and then we both watched him go down. It was really, really cool.
Was it like, a lot of times hunts are not picture perfect in any way, shape, or form. I mean, was it good? Like, was it a textbook like this? Did you have to track him? Was it like a brutal, or did he just drop?
It was a very interesting hunt. So when we finally got on them, the day we killed them, the herd was just like, I said, they were a ridge over there. Mm-hmm. So we were on them, and it was a really, really world-class hunt. We were after this, 320 inch bull, really, really nice chocolate antlered bull, like a 6x7 herd bull. And the day before we got within, 70 yards of them and just couldn't get a shot. And eventually the wind changed and they went around the corner and we couldn't catch up with them. So then we took a break and we were just like beat up, because that was like day 4 or something.
Running up mountains.
Yeah, running up mountains, or maybe even day 5. And so the next day we go and they pop up over there and they're going up the mountain and the wind was right. So we sprint around them and catch the tail end of them, just spikes and cows. And you couldn't shoot a spike in the area that we were in. And so then we had to run around and get the wind right up to literally the top of this mountain. And there they were going bananas, man. I mean, it was just like a bugle fest. Just every time. And we were hiking up this mountain and it finally like plateaued off. And there was like a tree had fallen or something, and there was like a bunker kind of where you could stick your head up and see. And I stuck my head up and I saw like 5 or 6 cows skylined on the top of this mountain. And the bulls like quit bugling then for whatever reason. And so I hung back about 100 yards from the cows, got in front of a tree and just started cow calling, right? Because I was like, okay, this is kind of a good scenario because the bull is not here. He's going to think the cows are going this way. I'm over here. He's going to think that I'm a cow who is a strangler. He's going to try and round me up. And so I started cow calling. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my left eye, I see this really nice bull walking basically to these other cows. And he turns on a dime and starts walking right at me. So I'm like, oh shit, this is going to happen. I already got narrow knocked and everything. I range him 50 yards. He keeps coming 40 yards, keeps coming 30 yards, 20 yards. I'm like, dude, I just put my 20 pin on and I drew back, and he stopped and looked right at me. And I put he was above me. And so he was on a hill above me. And I put my pin right on the color change of his mane, because I figured that would be the best way to go to the heart. Like I was aiming for the heart. And I break through my shot because I'm done with target panic, right? I've already decided that I'm done with this. I'm not doing this anymore. So I break through my shot and it hits him right where I wanted to, right in the color change. And it penetrates about that much. And he jumps and he's like, what was that? And he runs up about 30 more yards and turns broadside and looks at me. And I trying to knock an arrow, trying to get my sight tape dialed in. And I draw back. And right when I draw back, he sees me and he spooks. He goes over the hill. So I was like, I just messed up another chance.
And your heart just sinks.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
And my dad was like, well, maybe it bounced around, because when he was running, I mean, the arrow had such little penetration. It was going like this when he was bouncing around. I was like, dude, there's no way I'd killed it. There's no way I killed it. But we were holding on to the smallest of hopes that somehow maybe the arrow was bouncing and it nicked like his jugular or something. But it was this far into his sternum. It hit the bone and stopped. And I was just devastated. And so we go looking for blood. And we find these little drops of blood right where he is. And I couldn't believe there was blood. So we follow the blood trail all the way down, and the blood stops. And we never find my arrow. And we're walking along this ridge. And below us, we see the bull and a younger bull jump out of their bed and go and kind of run and stop. And we freeze, and it runs around the corner. And so I go sprinting down to that corner of the ridge, picture like a little bowl where they were sitting protected. And I just start cow calling like crazy. And he just never comes back. And he was fine. I mean, it penetrated this much. He was like, man, I don't know what hit me, but something hit me. And, we were looking, I was like, man, there was no blood in the bed that these two elk had no blood at all. The thing was fine, and the arrow was out of them, but we couldn't find the arrow. And we were like, dude, I mean, I was just so defeated at this point. Mm-hmm. I was so upset. And I was like, I don't know if I should notch my tag. And we were talking about like the ethics of it. And we decided that bull was not going to die, and it was going to be just fine. It was going to live a healthy life because it went that much. Mm-hmm. And, you hear stories of people like having broadheads in the scapula of deer and elk. And so we're like, I think it's okay to keep hunting, but we just need a break because we're so defeated. So we're going to pack up, head back to the camper. That was like 5 miles away. We're going to eat lunch, not hunt the afternoon, just get our minds right and come back tomorrow. And so we pack up all our stuff, and I put my backpack on my shoulder, and I stand up, and I see antlers coming from right to left, coming to that cow call, those cow calls that I was blowing so hard. And I was like, get down, dude. There's a bull right there. I'm not fucking with you. Like, there's a bull right there. Yeah. And so my dad gets down, and that's the video you see of me and my pack on. And there's a little rise, and I creep up to that rise, and I have a bugle call in my mouth, which typically isn't great for cow calls, but you can make it work. And so he's kind of going and looking for these cows, and I give a few mews, and he's like looking around, and there was this moment where you saw a decision where he was like, should I go over there and rejoin the herd, or should I go looking for this cow? And he did, and he sat there deciding for about 15 seconds, and he went to look for the cow. And I ranged the trees. He was kind of coming to the left of us up the draw, because we were kind of on the right-hand side of the draw. And I ranged these trees 52 yards. I can make that shot. And it was a little downhill, so my bow's steadier, so it was probably like 55 yards. And man, he gets to that gap in the trees. I'd stop him, and I just remember thinking, I was very clear-headed, and I was like, this is happening. This is not, I'm done messing up. I'm done missing. I'm done with target panic. I'm done not killing elk. This is it. And I made a decision to kill that bull with my bow. And I drew back when his head was, behind the tree, stopped him, drew back. And I just remember my pin just hovering and not going outside of the kill zone. And I shoot a back tension release. So I was just like, man, keep it there. Hover and pull, hover and pull, hover and pull. Don't do anything else. Just hover and pull. And I just kept my pin hovering. I pull, break. It breaks, and I see the arrow thump. Hits him a little high, but in the lungs. And he is like startled. He runs about 5 yards away. I knock another arrow, shoot him again, hits low and hits the log below him. And then that scares him. So he runs back to where he came from. And my dad stands up and sees his antlers fall. And we run up there, and he's like, be careful, don't trip on your arrow. You got to stay. Alert. It's not over yet. Yeah. It's not over yet. He's not on the ground. Stay ready to shoot again. And so we run up there, and we get to the spot that we shot him right past it. And it's, we were hunting in a burn. And the great thing about burns, the reason that elk like them so much is because it offers cover, but it also offers sunlight. And so there's a lot of grass growing in between these burnt trees. And in the grass, man, it looked like you took 6 cans of spray paint, shook them all up, and then, are we still good? Yeah, we're good. And then popped them with a knife like you would shotgunning a beer, and it just exploded red. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it felt surreal. And we come around this corner, and I see his butt laying there. And it was just like the most overwhelming feeling of like, I did it.
Yeah.
Like this journey that I was on to kill a bull elk with a bow is finally over, and he's actually laying right there. And man, we just started crying.
Yeah, dude, it is like that.
Yeah, it was really, really unbelievable.
Hey, I love hunting, I love fishing, and I love America. And with the 4th of July right around the corner, Uncle Louie's Fireworks wants you to celebrate this holiday responsibly. Uncle Louie's Fireworks is one of the only stores in the area that sells subtle fireworks, which emit less noise but still put on a great show, so you can enjoy a fireworks display without alarming wildlife, sensitive pets, and people who are averse to loud noises. They also offer fireworks ignition systems that allow you to set off fireworks with your phone to assure you still have all those very valuable fingers come your favorite hunting and fishing seasons. Uncle Louie's Fireworks, located at 7300 Schnipke Drive, Ottawa Lake, Michigan, just off US 23 Exit 1, wishes you a safe and happy 4th of July.
Dude, that's how my first deer bow hunting was for me. It was like I had my first deer I got was with a shotgun, like traditional Midwestern,
like slug. Yeah.
I don't think buckshot's legal in Ohio, but it was just like a slug, iron sights, 30 yards.
Yeah,
and it was pure luck, beginner's luck, just a good sized buck. And I'm like, dude, this is my second day ever hunting. This shit's great.
How old were you?
I was like 26.
Yeah,
this is my first ever hunt. And I'm like, this is easy, dude. I'm a hunter now. Spent 3 years without shooting anything after that. And I was like, I'm going to do this bow hunting thing because for me, I have a place to shoot in my yard. It's cornfields, But I just like the idea of a bow better. And I like that I can practice a bow and it's a lot more intimate. I'm like a human history, anthropology nerd. Yeah, it feels more human being to me to be that intimate into this. You know, and I think about stuff. I know I'm an idiot in real life, but like I think about these things, and like I don't like a lot of stuff. I'm not a very serious person about, but I take this stuff like dead serious. Like I love hunting, I love wildlife, and I was out. There's this weird. It's not weird. We have this program where I live, where a metro park system. We have a lot of deer, so it's a deer calling program. You get a draw. It's basically almost like public land hunt, but a lot less intensive with points and stuff. They draw you at random. So give me a spot. It's pretty good. There's this buck coming up. And I was toying with this buck. I hunted out there, to make a long story short, I had like basically 2.5 weeks of October. I think I missed 3 days of hunting out there.
Wow.
Just because of like obligations and work and stuff. And I go out there and set up over a scrape. He comes up one day. He just busts me. I mean, it wasn't a wind or anything. I just never had bow hunted before. So I'm like, he's walking up to me and I'm waiting for him to like get his head behind something. I pull back and he must have heard it or something. I don't know. Takes off. Doesn't come back to that spot anymore because he's like, this is fishy. So I like borrow a climber. I go, I've never done a climber before. So I climb up this tree. I saw him for days hovering in this thing on the other side of the woods. And I'm like, well, sitting here is dumb. This isn't going to help me at all. So I move over there. I get the climber. And he comes in, and I have 2 days left before my time's up. And I was like, wow. I have to kill this deer. If I have to take all of work off and stay here 12 hours a day, I don't care. And I go out there, I climb this tree, like right within like 20 yards from where he's been doing a scrape. And he comes in behind me, which in a climber sucks. It's not like you can't just like get up and turn around real quick. Yeah. And then he walks off, and I'm like, shit. And then he comes back. Wow. And he's in the field in front of me, so I can't get a clean shot. He's just like, it's tall grass, like a park property. I'm like, well, he walks off again. And it's like just before sundown, he comes in, textbook. He's like 15 yards from me, and he's walking real slow. I was at where you were. I draw back, and he has no idea I'm there. But I'm like, I've practiced static targets for 5 years straight. Never occurred to me that this deer would be walking when it was my time to shoot. And I've heard so many horror stories of dudes that do like the grunt or the yell or the call to stop them. Every guy I've ever talked to that's tried that was like, they took off immediately.
Really?
So I'm like, yeah. Every guy I've ever talked
happened to me.
Yeah.
That's never happened to me, man.
Just Midwest deer.
Maybe. I've always been able to stop deer.
That's good.
With that.
Maybe I'll try it next time.
Yeah. I just go like, I feel like you got to do a natural noise. Yeah. You know, like if you're hunting elk, you do like even if you do it in your mouth, just or like with a deer, I always go meh.
Yeah,
and it stops. But anyways,
I was just nervous too. Yeah. But I had been training myself to like control my heart rate and stuff.
Yeah.
But I followed him essentially with my pin on his vitals, and I just let it fly. And I thought I missed because he didn't react at all. He was just like, and I had that bow dialed. I was like practicing 40 yard, 50 yard, and he was like 15. It's like, I can't miss this shot. There's no way. And I was super bummed. And he just goes and falls over. And I'm like, because I'm like thinking like maybe I nicked him and I'm gonna be tracking this dude for the rest of the day or all night long. Dude, he fell over, and I'm in the tree stand just like shaking. And then I'm like, dude, I got to climb down this freaking tree. I sat in my tree stand for a half hour calming down, but it was like textbook.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know not every hunt's going to be like this, but I was out there by myself, and I'm just like, whoa. And I just sat there. Yeah. And I sat there for like 20 minutes, just like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Like, I was like, this is an ideal moment for me because this will never happen again. This is like the perfect scenario. All the stars align.
Yeah.
And it was just a moment, man. I was sitting there like, and especially someone I knew her, I was sad. I was like, dude, I just killed this thing. But it's like, I have a lot of work to do still. Yeah. So I like humped him out of there, which is a whole different story in and of itself. I wasn't like 4 miles backcountry like you. That's a whole different experience. I was like probably a half mile from the road.
Yeah.
I just carried him out of there, you know? Mm-hmm. And there's something spiritual about it, I would say, especially to new, like if a dude, like dudes that have been hunting for 30 years and stuff. I mean, I'm sure they still get some sort of like insane spirituality out of it. But for me, it was like, it just felt right. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you do things and we spend our lives trying to figure out what we like, what we're good at, what we want to do. And I think, we're in a similar age range, like 20s, 30s. You're still figuring out like, who am I? Like I'm a grown adult now, but I still am like, what am I? Who do I identify as a human being? And it's like that, those moments you're like, this is the right thing for me.
Yeah.
And because I'm a competitive person, but I'm not a person who's like highly concerned with what other people are doing. I mean, I like the fact that there's people around that push me to do things better, but I'm a me versus me kind of guy. And I'm like, I really enjoy that solo aspect of hunting. Like it's me versus the only thing that matters to me, which is wildlife. They're smarter than me. They're way more attuned to their environment than me. I was like, this is the fairest game on earth. I don't care what anybody says about like, oh, you have the advantage. If you've ever been winded by a deer, you do not have the advantage in any way, shape. They have all of the advantage, I would say, personally. I don't know if you agree, but like, I feel like it's the most equal playing field.
When it comes to bow hunting. For sure.
Specifically.
For sure. I mean, like there are like situations like I took my brother, 2 years ago, he was like, okay, I want to kill a big game animal in Montana because I've never done it. And we went out to eastern Montana with a rifle and killed a whitetail. And it was like, okay, there they are. Let's go over this hill, wait till they stand up, and you have a 200-yard shot. And it's like a done deal. You can make the shot. So in that situation, I would say that we have the overwhelming advantage for sure. And it's still like fun and it's still competitive, but or not competitive, but challenging. But if you know what you're doing, there's no reason why you shouldn't kill a mature whitetail in that situation. But in bow hunting, there are so many more variables because there's a big difference between being 200 yards away and being 20 yards away. Everything is heightened. I mean, you drop something and you're done, But I really like that thing that you said about not comparing yourself to others. And I think that's a really important point. My dad was really good about like drilling that in my head when I was young, especially when it comes to like wrestling.
Yeah.
He would, as a kid, you think something's cool and you want to emulate it, right? So you see like a cool move and you're like, man, I'm going to try that move in a match. And I would do that. Then I would lose because I didn't know how to do it. And my dad would just be like, man, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Why are you worried about what he's doing? You're you. And you're going to be the best that you can be. And even if your full potential isn't as good as that person, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter because you're going to do the best that you can do. And if you do the best that you can do, you're going to win, regardless of the outcome, and I think there's something to be said about that. But yeah, archery, man, it's a whole different game. It's a whole different game. There's a big difference between closing the gap of rifle and closing the gap of bow. Yeah.
Well, I'm hyper aware that I'm a very ideological person. Like, like there's a lot of things that I think that are probably a lot of other hunters wouldn't agree with, and that's totally fine. But I'm like, when you're creating your own ethic and trying to like, there's so much literature, there's so many opinions, there's 8,000 trillion billion hunting podcasts, and everybody has their own thoughts on it. And it's like when you're trying to navigate your own thing, it's hard because a lot of people tell you their opinion on what they think you should do with hunting. And like for me, I have no interest in predator hunting at all whatsoever. It just doesn't interest me. I'm not opposed to it. If people, like I just talked to Todd Craighead, he loves predator hunting. I don't have anything against that at all. The way that we've set up the environment as human beings and the destruction we've caused, it is necessary in some aspects. I'm just saying personally, when I hear that, I'm like, it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between being okay with the fact that predators have to be managed, but then it's like a whole different level of killing a predator. Like I don't typically like to kill anything that I don't, that's not like a purpose for. With that being said, killing coyotes is fun. Man, it's fun, it's necessary, but I really don't like the fact that you just take the hide off and you just kind of throw them away.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't I don't like that. But at the same time, you have to realize that because of the urbanization of the environment, shopping malls, deforestation, everything like that, the balance of nature isn't what it used to be. And so because of that, and because we like to hunt and everything, we need to manage the population. Same goes with bears, everything. But the difference with bears is you can actually eat them.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I'd love to do a bear hunt. I think a black bear hunt would be way more different because, I mean, deer have teeth, but they don't have the teeth that can eat you. You know, like a bear, if you piss off a bear, you're going to have a bad time, and
the stakes are higher.
The stakes are higher. Yeah. But I like that in a way. And I was talking about this earlier. It was I don't know if you were there or not, but it was like, you know, if I ever died hunting, I feel like that's the best case scenario because it's like, I've killed a lot of shit. That would only be fair. It would only be like on that level of life and deaths, like it would be the right thing, I think. And I don't want that to happen, but if it did, I'd be like, this is the way it is. This is how it probably should have ended up.
Well, I mean, when you go grizzly bear hunting or brown bear hunting or black bear hunting or wolf hunting with a bow, especially, it's the same thing as like hunting in grizzly country, doing anything. You're signing a contract with that animal that says, look, I'm trying to kill this elk, you know, in the case of elk hunting, I'm trying to kill this elk and you're here. And if something happens, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, there's really nothing I can do about it. And the same with like bear hunting. Look, I mean, I'm trying to get, 40 yards away from a grizzly bear
that could rip my head off.
And if it kills me, then that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, it's very rare that happens, but it can happen. You know, I mean, the stakes are higher. If you have a bad shot on that animal, it's going to be pissed.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, it could happen. If it does, you just have to be okay with the fact that like that's a possibility. And I'm signing a contract with this animal. And if it happens, that's just, it got me.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that. And another thing that, I'm having a hard time with now is I've been doing this. So I've been doing the podcast, I think, for like almost 3 years now. And then I've been doing hunting for approximately 6. And I've just seen the trends change so much on social media with the way things are now. I'm never really too concerned with what's going on social media. And I mean, I know it might be a different opinion for you because you kind of work in that world too. We both work in that world. We both work in that space. And I think it's just from a hunting perspective, I think I see a lot of my friends get demoralized because they think they have to have like $8,000 of hunting equipment to go out and hunt. And it's not a big deal for me because I'm comfortable with where I'm at. Like I know what gear I need that needs to be high quality and nice. And I know what gear I don't need. It's like to have a successful hunt for me. And I understand that the best case and worst case scenario for having high end gear. But it's like the only shit people talk about now. And I'm like, I don't care about it as much because a lot of like firearm stuff and all that stuff goes towards conservation dollars. But I'm like, and I maybe I am too ideological, but I'm like, I really wish we could put this stuff towards conservation instead of like bickering over who looks cooler. And I'm like, it's like this whole fashion thing. And I'm like, it's great if that's what you need to hunt and you enjoy that. I don't care what you're doing. But like my friends who wanted to get into it, they're under the impression that they need to spend $10,000 at Sitka to hunt. I'm like, dude, that is not true. You do not need a $3,500 Benelli to go duck hunting. We can go to Walmart and hook you up right now. Down the road, you'll probably end up buying a better shotgun because you'll realize its limitations. And that's where I'm at. I'm at that point where I'm like, the limiting factor now is my gun because it's just an old gun that was laying around. So I don't know if you have any perspective on that. I mean, I've seen you hunt. You have nice gear, but you're elk hunting and walking 5 miles. That's a different scenario than me sitting in a deer stand or my buddy who's never hunted before to see if he even likes it. It's just discouraging for a lot of people that aren't in that, like, not everybody makes $200,000 a year, Some people just want to go out and enjoy it. And I battle with that a lot because it's like a lot of my friends are in that realm. They're like, dude, I can't hunt with you. I can't afford that shit. I'm like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to. And I'm not saying, like, again, I'm not dissing that. I'm just saying there's this perspective for new people that that's what it takes. And it's not true.
Yeah, I think there are a couple different sides to the coin in that equation. On the pro side you're always going to have gear junkies, right? Backpacking, mountain biking, hunting, fishing, whatever. You're always going to have guys that are more concerned about the gear than the actual pursuit, which is fine. Whatever. The plus side to that is you have the Pittman-Robertson Act, I believe. Is it Pittman-Robertson?
Yes.
That where, 10% or 7% of any gear purchased related to fishing and hunting goes back to conservation. That's a wildly positive idea. That includes firearms, actually. So the bonus side to that is that there's a lot more money going to conservation. Now the downside to that is...
I don't know if that includes clothing. I don't know that for a fact. I know it's firearms.
It does. Well, we're being recorded, so I should be careful with that.
Well, no. I'm not calling you. I'm just saying I don't know for sure. It should, but I don't know if it does.
I think it does. The Pittman-Robertson Act should cover, from my understanding, I could be wrong, anything related to fishing and hunting, from boots to clothing to bobbers to firearms. It has that tax that goes to conservation. I don't know what exact. I think it's 7%, but I'm not sure.
I don't know that. I mean, the numbers are important, but yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, there's that aspect where even if someone is a gearhead and they only care about the gear, which is fine, there's still positive impact there. Now, the downside to that is that high barrier of entry that you are observing.
Perceived high barrier to entry.
Perceived high barrier entry. Now, what's interesting is I always typically admire the guys who still have they're typically older. They have just sometimes they still hunt in BDUs and old Realtree. And most of the time, those guys are the real killers. Especially in the turkey hunting world. You see a guy with beat up old gear. It's beat up for a reason because he uses it and he kills a lot of turkeys with that vest or that gun or whatever. And I'm more, I'm lucky because I'm in the industry, and so I get like 60% off of most things. And if that wasn't the case, then I probably, I don't know. But then I was a wilderness elk guide, and it's -10 and stuff, and you gotta stay warm. But I don't know. I guess it is a perceived higher barrier to entry, but at the same time, you see the cost of some bows going down. Companies like Bear Archery are making really affordable bows. You can get a good bow for like $400 that typically fits anyone. They have different draw length sizes and draw weights. And so you see kind of the flip side to that as well. But you also see a lot of people like Curtis Gear from Working Class Bow Hunter who preaches that. He's like, look, I shoot an elite bow because it's just what I prefer. Yes, it's expensive. I, wear this clothing, but you don't need it. We're working class guys. Go out there, shoot your bow and kill some deer. So, I don't know. There's that, whole retention, recruitment, retention, and whatever the last R3 is. Re-engagement. Yeah. That's going on. And there are, the concept is great. There's some people with some issues with how that's being executed that I'm not really educated on. But yeah, you do see a decline in hunters, and the gearhead philosophy does present a perceived higher barrier to entry. But I think at the bottom line, we need to be more open to educating new hunters. And there's a big difference between the fishing world and the hunting world in terms of the introduction to new anglers and hunters. Whereas if you walk into a fly shop, they're going to tell you, look, if you go here and you fish with this, you're probably going to catch a fish. And here are some good spots that you can go. If you walk into a bow shop and you ask them, well, where are the elk? They're going to laugh you out of the store because they're like, dude, there are only a limited number of spots. I'm not telling you where the elk are. Are you kidding me? I worked years to find my spot. And so, that's one of the reasons why it took me 5 years to kill a bull, because I couldn't find them. And then when I did find them, turns out they're pretty hard to kill anyways. But
exactly.
But I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I mean, I was just trying to get people's perspective on it. That's just the way I see it, because I actively work on trying to get people engaged in hunting around me, mostly to build my own hunting buddy group, because not that many people around me are into it for some reason, or they just don't care to hunt with other people, which is fine. But it's like, I have heard that complaint so many times, because it's not that they're worried about it. They're just like, dude, I can't afford this. I was like, we could go to Cabela's right now and get you outfitted for like $500.
I mean, listen, man, you can kill a deer on the ground with a homemade longbow.
Yeah.
With homemade arrows. People do it.
You could buy a $300 bow.
I mean, Ruger makes great guns that, you could buy. They have I think it's the American rifle. It is chambered in, anything from like 243 to 308 to, I think, even up to, I think it's up to 7mm Magnum, but it's a very affordable rifle. It's not anything special, but it shoots and it's accurate, and you can kill a deer with it from the ground.
Yeah.
In blue jeans.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing is like, I will eventually have way nicer, expensive equipment. This is a lifelong commitment for me, dude. Like, this is what I'm into. This is my hobby. This is my sport. This is my whole infatuation is my being.
Yeah. So
like, I know that I will be down there eventually, but like, my whole point is for the new guy. It's like, they just if your new guy is a freaking making 6 figures a year, he doesn't give a shit. He's like, cool, I'll buy a $3,000 shotgun. That's nothing. But like, to the average dude who I know, that's a huge thing. So whatever. I'm tired of talking about that shit. I talk about it every day with a lot of people. But so another thing, and this is personal experience. It took me until 3 days ago to fly fish for the first time. That's a very intimidating thing. And I don't know if it's as much there's a lot of highbrow in that. It's like a highbrow thing. A lot of people, like, I've literally been with dudes. They're like, if you catch trout in anything but a fly rod, like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever, dude. I literally care less. So, it's not, that doesn't bother me as a person, because I'm not a big, like, again, I compete with myself. I'm not really concerned with anybody else is doing. I think the thing with fly fishing, which you're insanely good at that, like, I was more concerned with how perceived complicated it was to cast. That kept me for a long time. And fly rods aren't, you could buy a $600 fly rod, or you can buy a $100 fly rod. It doesn't matter to start.
Yeah,
Start with,
just
it doesn't
FYI,
matter.
Orvis, you can get set up with. I set my fiance Malin up with this. It's $200 for a rod, reel, and line combo.
Yeah.
The Orvis Clearwater. I love that rod. Malin will not fish with anything but her rod, and I have $1,200 just because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
I have $1,200 custom built Scott fly rods that Malin won't even touch because she's just like, I want to fish with my rod. No, it's not because of the cost. I've broken probably 20 fly rods in my life.
Yeah.
She just loves that rod. It's a great rod. So the barrier to entry is becoming low,
very low. You can buy a Reddington combo for $75. It's probably a piece of crap, but like,
Echo. What fly rod do you
Temple
fish?
Fork outfitters.
Temple Fork, are they affordable?
Yeah, their combo is probably comparable to the Orvis one you were talking about, maybe a little less, maybe like it's the same price range, $250 entry level.
Yeah, but Reddington, $75 gets you into it. Yeah, and you will not know the difference until you are a good caster.
That's exactly where I'm at.
Yeah,
but I think if you grow up fishing like regular tackle fishing, spinning, whatever, the concept is so reverse from the way you think that I think that was my intimidating factor, because everybody that casts a fly rod is like, it's this delicate balance. And I'm used to just hucking that thing, just like, get it as far as you can. With a fly rod, if you do that, you're going to lose every fly you've ever bought. And because they just snap off. The first time I ever casted, I put a strike indicator on it and I just whipped it into the cornfield and never saw it again. Because I was like, give her hell. And the finesse is thing. But the thing I learned fly fishing for the first time around other people is most of the other people suck too.
Oh, yeah. dude.
Like, I was intimidated as shit to step on the water. Like, I'm going to look like an absolute tool. And then I casted like across the stream because I've been practicing for 2 months on my yard. And the dude next to me has like the whole Sims get up. And I'm like, this dude's going to like make me look like, and his just shit's piled up in front of him in the river. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't feel so bad now. But no, I mean, it is a more delicate and difficult thing, I will say, as a guy who's casted for 2 days.
Well, it's interesting because you go in such, like, all of everything that we're talking about has so many different illusions and so many different lenses to look through and so many different epiphanies that you realize, oh, well, you know, I thought about it this way because I didn't really totally understand exactly what was going on. And now that I do, it's actually like this. And that's one of the things that I think about fly casting is I think about fly casting. I learned this from my dad. It's actually an athletic thing. I mean, if you watch my dad, who is the best fly caster that I've ever seen, you know, he won the Great Outdoor Games and everything. I mean, he will, you know, take a step back and reach all the way back and then step forward like you're throwing a football and and that's where the athleticism comes in there. But, you know, the thing about fly rods is it's kind of like bows. The bow should do the work for you.
Yeah.
You just have to get out of the way. And what's going on is that the different from spin, when you spin fish, the weight is in whatever you're casting, the lure. That's why, you know, if you throw a crappie jig on 20-pound test, you're going to have a really hard time getting it out there because the weight's not there. But if you know, throw like a spinnerbait on 20-pound test, you can shoot that thing as far as you want because it's heavy, right? Whereas the fly line, what that allows you to do is throw anything, even no fly, because the weight is in the actual line. And so it allows you to fish in a different way that sometimes can be more effective than even spin fishing because with trout particularly, they like to target small bugs, right? That's nymphs, underwater nymphs. You know, there's a life cycle of bugs that goes from nymph to, a merger to dry fly or dun. And then it flies around for a little bit. Then it goes to a spinner, which it lays its eggs and then just dies on the water. And so it allows you to cast that. And what's going on is that because this line has weight to it, that should be appropriate for the size of rod that you're using. So if you're using a 5-weight rod, you should have a 5-weight line or heavier. Like a lot of people overload. Like I like to overload my streamer rods because it allows it to get more flex in the rod and then shoot that out. But that's exactly what's going on. The only thing that's happening with fly fishing or fly casting, I should say, is that you are allowing that rod to snap back. So when you bring it back, the rod will flex the opposite way that you're bringing it back. And you need to stop like you're hitting a brick wall with your hand. And what that allows you to do, what that allows the fly rod to do is what it wants to do, which is to snap back like that. And that shoots the line behind you. And you need to be patient enough to allow the weight to accumulate on that front end. So it bends back, keeping your hand in the same position. And then you fire that rod forward, which increases that bend just like a bow, just like you're drawing a bow back. And then when you stop on the dime, that allows that rod to flex in the opposite way and shoot the line out there. And that's why you see old ladies like Joan Wolfe, who's a legend and one of my favorite female fly casters, be able to, you know, she's like 75. She can cast the line further than I can, for sure. Maybe further than my dad. I don't know. And she's just perfect at letting that rod do the work, and it's flexing back and forth. And so, for instance, like if you go back and you don't stop, what happens is it's losing all its momentum. So then you feel like you have to really dive into it. Whereas if you are just patient and you feel the rod load back like this, when you will feel that in your rod and you say, okay, I'm ready to go. And it's longer than you think because you got to wait for that whole line to get from way in front of you to way behind you and tight. And once it's tight, you can let the rod do its work.
Yeah, and it is, I'm just lucky enough to have been around people who know what they're doing long enough to know that with anything, really, it's all about breaking things down into steps. Like when I hiked the Appalachian Trail, if you're focusing on
the 2,000 miles ahead of you,
focusing on the end point, you're going to have a lot worse of a time than if you're focusing on where you're going today.
Or not make it.
Yeah. So like every day I focused on the 15 miles I was hiking. I was like,
you're doing 15 a day?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So it's like you'd be like, well, if I make it to here by lunch, I'll have an hour break. Mm-hmm. So every day it's just like going to work. You break it down to the day. And then if you put enough days together, one day you're going to wake up and you're like, I'm on Mount Katahdin.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm done. But people like to think of these, like they get overwhelmed by thinking of the whole project, you know? So it's the same thing with shooting a bow. I got the drawback. I figured out my anchor point, and then now I'm breaking down all the rest. I'm standing. Okay, I need to work on my stance. Make sure I'm doing the stance right. I need to work on, when I release to follow through. I need to work on all these different things, but I can't work on them all at the same time. But eventually over time, they'll all work together. And that's how I'm attacking the fly rod. First, I need to figure out how to get the line in front of me.
Yeah.
And then I can work on breaking down each step, the back cast, work on that. Once I get that comfortable with that, then I'll work on the shooting the lineup. But I can't work on them all at the same time. But you also can't be afraid to just go out there and look like an idiot too.
Oh, you have to. You have to.
There's no way to not.
Dude,
do
even
that.
when I didn't grow up fly fishing. Like my dad was a fly fishing guide in Jackson for about 6 years, fishing the South Fork of the Snake, and sometimes the Henry's Fork. And then he went down to the Keys and was a fly fishing guide down there before I was born. And right around the time I was born was when he realized, okay, I can either have a really hard time catching a permit or a tarpon on fly, or I can throw a crab on there and get and catch 6, 10 in a good day. What's easier and better for the client, and what's also the most accessible for everyone so that I can open up my client base to things like that. So I didn't grow up fly fishing because he kind of made that evolution from fly fishing to spin fishing, which you're starting to see more and more because for whatever reason, which I don't recommend, people are starting to start out fly fishing, which in my opinion is totally backwards. I think you need to have an understanding of exactly what's going on in fishing and what the fish behavior is like. And I think that spin fishing lends itself to a more conceptual understanding of what exactly fishing is and fish behavior before you can do something more difficult. So like that's what I tell everybody. It's like, look, do the easiest thing, get it done. Kill a deer, catch a fish. And then once you figure out, okay, well, they like a slower presentation on these days. They like, just like in the pond right there, I figured out that, okay, on cold and windy days in Texas, apparently they like poppers to sit for longer instead of a faster presentation. So I need to sit. And that's, just by luck of the draw from doing that. But if you jump right into fly fishing, you're going to get frustrated. And then you're going to, what's it called when you like, think it's okay to do something.
I'm not sure.
Damn. But you're going to justify because you're doing something harder, and it's okay to not catch fish because you're fly fishing. That's not acceptable for me. Like, I'm catching fish.
Well, you and I are very much on a similar page of outside of all the bullshit, outside of all the most important thing is to understand animal habitat. You could be the best shot in the world, but if you don't know where the deer are, what does it matter?
Yeah.
I always start with understanding first. Before we came fly fishing, I was reading about trout like a nonstop. Because I was like,
what were you reading?
Well, I was reading Lefty Kray's book on fly casting and just like general whatever you find on Amazon. I don't know the name, trout books. And just whatever. And I spent I had grown up fishing all summer long. Mm-hmm. But I did not understand that there was more to bass fishing than topwater, like what are those?
Poppers.
Poppers and like
worms.
we didn't even use worms. It was always topwater. What are those jitterbugs?
Chatterbaits?
No, just they're jitterbugs. They literally are like they float on top of the water and they have like the double circled thing
like
on
frogs?
their lips and they just like swim back and forth like an injured.
Yeah, like a walking the dog sort of bait.
Yeah. Essentially, they're kind of like a popper. It's the same concept. I was like, my dad had a tackle box with like 50 of those things, and I was like, this is how you catch bass. I grew up and I was like, why do I never catch them? And then I like last year, I mean, I understood plastics and what they like, but I was just like, everyone had always told me like, no, they just use these things. So that's all I ever thought of. I was like, that's bass fishing.
Yeah.
I started reading books on bass and bass habitat, and I just immediately out of the gate just started slaying them. And they're like, well, how did you do this? I was like, I read a book, dude. And I watched YouTube videos like, how do you catch bass?
Yep.
And like, that 20 years of information out the window, useless information.
Yep.
Do those things topwater have their place? Of course they do. There's absolute
in the right
scenarios.
situation.
But now I have that experience and understanding of like going down these rabbit holes. Like you can in certain situations, but like you're not going to catch a crappie on the same rig you're going to catch a bass on. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to catch a bass on the same rig you catch a crappie on because they just attack just about anything. It seems like, but like you said, there's different patterns. There's different ways of thinking about it. Sometimes they're aggressive and they want to just attack anything that moves. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to finesse the worm along the bottom. Like it's a poor struggling little, and sometimes you could just like, it touches the top of the water and they eat it. It just depends on the day. There's so many factors. And I think it's like that saying, like, what is it? Like the amateur practices and they want to work on things that professionals work on. Mm-hmm. And the amateur, is trying to figure out how they can become a pro. And the pro just spends all their time focusing on the basics.
Hey, what's up everyone? James Appleton here, co-founder of Absolute Aid. Welcome to the Seek to Do More program. This program will help you help yourself by developing the daily habits that will elevate your entire life. Over the next 30 days, you'll complete the doers list every single day. And the doers list includes 1, do something physical. 2, follow and stick to your diet of choice. 3, read a real book. 4, further your education on purpose. 5, dedicate time to your spiritual life. And 6, dedicate time to your hobbies. So if you're ready to take a structured, proven approach to build the daily habits that will allow you to get the most out of yourself, your time, and your life every single day, the Seek to Do More program is your blueprint. So make a choice, commit to yourself, sign up below, and let's get started.
The whole concept of like the professionals are always working on basics. Mm-hmm. I'm sure your dad's still focused. He's been fishing his whole life and made a career out of fishing. He probably still is on the fundamentals continuously.
Well, I mean, it's just as simple. I mean, look, man, fishing and hunting are very, very simple, and you can get tied up in the details. But you need to be where the animal is and doing the right thing. That's it. Mm-hmm. And then you need to execute whatever you're willing to execute. So with fishing, you need to be where they want to be at the right time of day when they're willing to eat, and you need to be throwing the right thing. That's it.
That's it. It's that simple.
That's it. And you can get tied up in, I want to do it this way. I want to catch permit on fly. Well, you're going to have to start focusing on a lot more variables if you want to do it, because it's much more difficult. You need to, but it's the same concept. You need to be there at the right time, throwing the right thing.
Well, this is how I would think about that. Just me right now, I would like to catch a permit any way possible to figure out what it's like. Yeah. If I can catch one, I would be happy. I would throw the most frowned upon whatever in the fly fishing world, whatever it takes to catch that animal, to know what to expect. Mm-hmm. And if I enjoy that, I will obsessively learn about them until I've memorized their habitat, what I need to do, how to do this, how to do that. And I will cast my fly rod for 100 hours in a row to get good enough. And that will be. But if I'm like, why would I spend 10 years learning how to do this? And maybe I don't even like it. Maybe I catch a permit. I'm like, this ain't for me, dude. No, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I think that's the right approach because you're starting with the basics. You're starting with spin casting on a crab for permit. And there's a tendency, for whatever reason, in the fly fishing world to jump immediately into the most difficult thing to do. And you can spend, 5-6 trips going on and hundreds of thousands of dollars going down to the Florida Keys to try to catch a permit on fly and never do it because you're a shit fly caster.
Exactly.
And that's a broad generalization, of course, but I highly, highly recommend for anyone that wants to do anything. I mean, jumping into fly fishing is, of course I recommend it, but just know that it's like rock climbing. Jump like spin fishing for trout, or let's use trout.
That's
spin
how
fishing
I caught my
for trout.
first trout.
Yeah, it's like
ago.
doing a 5.6 or whatever the easiest thing is, right? With a Rapala. But you understand how to rock climb. Now, you understand that you need finger strength. You understand that you need rope safety. You understand all these basic variables that go into what needs to happen for me to get up to that top. But fly fishing is like jumping into a 5.13. Where you're holding on these little tiny things and you don't have the right finger strength to be able to do that and the right understanding. And of course it can happen. Of course you can go on the right day. And, my dad always used to joke. He's like, man, why do I get the best clients on the worst days and the worst clients on the best days? And he's like, man, let me tell you, they're permit on fly are the hardest fish to catch on fly, at least in the Keys, arguably. There are a lot of hard fish to catch on fly, but permit are probably the most well-known and difficult. He's like, look, man, I get days where it's blowing 35 miles an hour. We see a couple groups of fish. My angler puts it perfectly, everything he needs to do perfect, and they won't bite. And then the next day it's like, just a little windy, so it's not slick calm and they're not spooky. They're everywhere, and he can cast it only 20 feet in front of the boat, and everything's tangled, and he puts it, right in front of the trolling motor, and the permit swim over there and eat it, and he catches 10. And it's just like, it can happen. Of course it can happen if you try jumping into a very difficult pursuit, but you're missing a lot of the conceptual facts that make you a better angler if you just freaking catch them.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I think everybody wants to be this like big outdoors icon and this big, because it's a thing. It's like outdoors famous is a thing, Instagram famous. And it's so weird because that doesn't matter to me at all. I love to just be around people who love what they do. If you didn't hunt and you were like, dude, I'm the best calligraphy writer in the world, I would be like, dude, that's fucking sweet. I just like to be around people who are good at what they do because they're those are the people that help you understand life. Honestly, I've been around a lot of people in the hunting world who are good at what they do. And it's great to watch them, and they're so helpful, and they want you to be good too. But getting those experiences are what's really important to me. And then getting again, I'm very lucky to have the experiences I've had. I'm just a dude from Ohio who started a podcast randomly about hunting when I got into it. And all of the advice I ever get from some of the best in the fucking world is they're just go do it and don't worry about the rest and learn shit. That's it.
Just trying to learn something every time you go.
Go learn. Yeah. Do you, because you're a hard worker, you bust your ass, you've done so many things in the outdoors that are impressive. Do you and you don't have to answer this if you don't want, do you get, because of who your dad is, to people oh, you're so lucky, dude? You still have to work your ass off. You are a very, very hard worker. You read a 500-page book on turkey habitat. Who the fuck does that? Does it get, I'm sure that you get that. Does that get old? Because you work your ass off. I've seen you do it, man, in person many times.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm in a situation where if I was living in the Keys and I was a fishing guide, that would probably come up pretty often because my dad is well known in that community. And you go to Florida and it's funny, he'll go out to Bozeman or well, I don't know, because there was a poster of him in Sportsman's Warehouse in Bozeman for 15 years. And so he might get recognized there. But I don't know. I mean, you go to like Miami, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Key West, Florida Keys, and it's like you go to the grocery store and people are like, holy shit, that's Tom Rowland. But, because I've done a lot in the fishing world, and I love it. It's amazing. But there's something about the hunting world that it's so new and challenging to me because fishing kind of comes naturally. Yeah. I like even just around the water, I feel at home. Yeah. I was surfing in Hawaii and I was like, I just feel at home. I just feel like so connected and at peace. And like, it's just so like if I was a bum and, I didn't have any money, I would just travel around and fish just because it's comforting. Mm-hmm. It's something that I grew up doing all of my life. But, in the hunting world, there's none of that. I like the hunting world because everything's equal. I feel like I've earned, in the fishing world, I'm spoiled as hell. Me and Andrew were just talking about this because, my dad would get back from a guided trip. I would be every day. I would sit on the dock with my feet hanging over, looking at the fish, wait for my dad to get back and just to hear about his day. And many times he would be like, the client would leave because he would be like, hey, we got to go. The trip's done. I got to get back to my family. And just be like, hey, it's time to go. And then once the client would leave the dock and the house, he'd be like, Turner, they're still biting. Let's go.
That's sweet, dude.
Yeah. And so so many times. And I would just catch rad tarpon and permit and bonefish, just after school, all the time. But in the hunting world, I feel like I've learned everything and I've earned everything 100% by myself. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm also attracted to that because I don't have any stakes. No one in my family before me was a big game hunter. It was very foreign. My grandfather was a waterfowl hunter, but I feel like everything in the hunting world I built myself.
Yeah.
And
that's fair.
It just, I don't know, it is, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. Mm-hmm. And, fishing, I don't know, it's fun because I go fishing with my dad and I always look at him. I'm like, what can I learn from my dad? Because now that I'm out of the house and I live in Montana, those opportunities are really rare, so I take the time when we're fishing to ask questions and see what he would do. And, I've spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours on the water fishing by myself, but I always learn several things when I go fishing with my dad. I'm old enough now to understand what is going on or happened for a while. But,
wow, finally.
But I'm old enough now to understand how difficult the things that I did as a child so easily were. Mm-hmm. And the amount of hours and experience and blood, sweat, and tears that it took to put me in that situation, the amount of sacrifice my dad had to go because he wanted to see me catch a fish. Mm-hmm. And now the roles are kind of reversed in the hunting world where I'm like, okay, Dad, we're getting you a deer. We're getting you an elk. And he's like, okay, well, what are they doing? What's going on here? Where do we need to go? And I'm the guide, mm-hmm. And so I think that's really cool. And we have a really cool, relationship like that. So I don't feel any pressure of my dad's the, very accomplished in the fishing world. Growing up, there definitely was some pressure to be a guide and be that generational kind of thing. But after we moved to Tennessee, I was a young kid still. I think it was mostly just oh, how cool would that be if we were a generational mm-hmm. thing? But, no, I don't feel any sort of animosity or pressure to be the best fisherman in the world.
Well, I don't see that in you in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying, from other people,
there's certainly some jealousy.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Yeah, and I recognize it. I'm a lucky son of a bitch. To have a role model like my father is incredible, and I thank God every day for him and how smart he was and how he was able to transform. Basically, I love to tell this story because I think it represents really who my dad is and how hard of a worker he is. He took a test in high school He really, really struggled in school, and he always got bad grades, and he felt like he was just dumb and he couldn't do anything right, and he was going to be a loser for the rest of his life because he was like failing in his class. He was trying really hard, but I mean, all his teachers just thought he was going to be a deadbeat guy, with the exception of some really good teachers who taught him how to write. And he took this one test in high school, like an aptitude test that would tell you decent career options for you. And they got the test results back, and he was like, "Hey man, what'd you get?" And he was like, "Oh, well, I got a doctor, I got a lawyer, I got a, all these really cool careers that people typically think are prestigious and good careers." He got, the only career option that he got was a fire lookout. To sit in
better than what I got.
Yeah.
Landscaper.
Hey, that's an honorable profession.
Well, I know.
Man.
I'm just saying, like, that they were like, you like outdoor stuff. You could be a landscaper. I'm like,
I don't think I want to do that.
look at me now. I'm like, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but I mean, he got this, and he was just like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, everybody's telling me that I'm like not smart and I can't. And my dad is one of the smartest motherfuckers I've ever met in my life. And it's just, I don't think it translated to academic smarts. I think that looking back on it, if he wanted to get good grades, he could have, but he just didn't. I don't think that he really, maybe he didn't apply himself, or maybe he did. I don't know. But he took that and made a career from guiding in Jackson and then guiding in the Keys, and now, owning a multi-million-dollar business that he built himself.
Yeah.
And it's just a great role model.
Generally, entrepreneurial-minded people do terrible in school.
Isn't that interesting?
Because they don't follow the rules. They don't do well.
Yeah, I don't think he followed the rules.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're put in these scenarios where you just disagree with, like, they see the world differently, Like they are not. They're like everybody sees the world as this box where you have to follow these static lines. And every entrepreneur I've ever met was like, "Dude, I'm coming out here with a can of paint and I'm just gonna do whatever I want."
Yeah,
and that's, some people are ingrained with that. Some people are just naturally rebellious. But those people are generally entrepreneurs because you have to have a lot of self-confidence and a lot of willingness to do things that other people won't do and take risks that other people won't take. Like, going as an entrepreneur, you can either go big or you can be broke.
Yeah.
And I'm in the broke stage right now, brother. And it's a lot of work. But the best thing I've ever learned from anybody in my life is I was like struggling. When after I finished the AT, I had like a crisis. I was like, I don't know what to fucking do. I cannot work a normal job for the rest of my life. And one of the guys that I hiked with, I was talking to him after, and he was like an entrepreneurial guy. And I was like, I just have all these ideas. I just don't know what to do. And he said, nobody's going to figure it out for you. You got to figure it the fuck out. And that's the best thing anybody ever told me. He's like, nobody's coming to help you. Nobody's going to do it for you. This is all on you. And that's like a shitty thing to hear when you're like all down on yourself. It's the best advice I've ever gotten in my life. Nobody's coming for you, dude. And that's the biggest motivator in my life. Every time I get bummed, like, nobody's watching my reels, bro. Like, nobody gives a fuck. This is on you. Figure it out. And that keeps me going, man.
Yeah, it's man, I think there's a lot of especially when people who do really well in college, I don't think that, I say this half jokingly, but I mean, I don't want to lead anybody astray, but for me, college was a complete and total scam.
Same.
Like,
I agree 100%.
You come out of it in debt. If you don't have a degree in engineering or whatever, you're going to make, $30,000 a year with $150,000 in debt. Like, it's just I think it's a total scam. It wasn't right for me, I should say. And I ended up graduating, based on the advice of my dad, because I was like, man, I'm just going to kind of follow in your footsteps. I'm going to move down to the Keys. I'm going to be a guide. Like, screw this college thing. He's like, man, Key West was a lot different when I was down there. There were 10 guides. Now there are 60, just so you know. And he's like, do you know what you want to do for the rest of your life? Said, no, stay in school, because you might find that and it might require a college degree, and you do not want to be in the situation where you have to go back to school. I promise you. I was like, well, that's some pretty good advice. So
it's not terrible. I've heard worse advice.
Yeah, I'm going to graduate. But yeah, I think that there is a really big problem, and this kind of goes back to what we were initially talking about with the gear of overthinking and thinking through the problem is much more important than actually doing it. And that is the total opposite, where you need to start doing it. Like if you want to start a business, right? You can walk, what does school teach you? You need to have a business plan. You need to have a marketing plan. You need to hire an accountant. You need to do all these things. No, bottom line is you need revenue. You need to sell, and then you'll figure shit out later. Like
you get raped by taxes, and then you'll figure out how to not do that anymore, and you'll freak out. And those are the lessons. Yeah, 100% agree, man.
Yeah,
100% agree. Well, we went down a lot of rabbit holes. And I always love talking to you, man. Like it just feels refreshing to talk to people who are like similar mindset and all that things. Like just a lot of people don't want to do the hard work of learning about wildlife or going out there and spending 5 years. And it's really awesome to know someone that like has that similar mindset. Like it's gonna suck and you're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that from you. And like, man, I love catching up with you and hearing all your sweet hunting stories. I want to live vicariously through you because my hunting stories suck.
No, dude. I mean, it took me 5 years to even feel like I sort of kind of know what I'm doing in the hunting world. Like it just takes time. Man, it just takes hours in the woods. That's all it does. It takes hours in the woods, and you'll figure shit out. And you already killed a deer with a bow, which is a massive accomplishment, and you should feel really fucking good about that. And just keep going, man. Just keep going, and you'll one day you're gonna look up and be like, I kind of know what I'm doing.
Maybe, sort of. But all right, man, we'll wrap it up. But thank you. If you want people to know how to find you on social media, that's up to you. Or to learn more about Waypoint, I think what you guys are doing is killer between all the shows and the podcasts and everything.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So where can people learn about that? And, thank you guys for sponsoring this event too. I mean, this is my favorite highlight of my year. This is like my vacation. I love coming to this thing. So thank you for that a lot too.
Yeah, it's super fun. So to find me on social media, I don't post a lot, really.
You don't.
Like we went on a bison hunt and killed 2 bison. I didn't even post that, and I don't know.
Good on you.
But
thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm kind of virtue signaling right here, but
poser.
Yeah, no, my Instagram is Turner Rowland 1 ROWLAND. You can find me on Facebook too. That's just about all I do. And then among other things, I'm the head of the podcast network for Waypoint TV. We are a digital media streaming platform for fishing and hunting shows. That you can find us on waypointtv.com. You can download our OTT app if you have a smart TV and Wi-Fi, just like you do Netflix. Search the App Store, Waypoint TV, download. You can binge your favorite fishing and hunting shows. We have hundreds of shows. And then, the majority of our listenership comes through our fast channels or our linear channels that are essentially like cable with Wi-Fi. So if you have a Samsung, LG, or Vizio TV, you already have Waypoint. You just need to go to the live TV section of those. And you can find our channel listings on the website under the ways to watch section. Like I think on Samsung TV, we're like 1162 or something like that. And it's all free. So, go and enjoy the outdoor content, get motivated, spend some time outside. And all of our podcasts that you can find on the website are available on all the podcast apps, Samsung, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, all of that. So enjoy the free outdoor content, get motivated, learn some things from Waypoint, and try to apply them to the outdoors. Because we have a lot of really good role models on Waypoint that are doing a lot of really incredible things. I mean, we vet all our shows. There's not a show on there that I wouldn't stand behind. And so those are really quality producers. Try to learn something and apply it in the woods, and you'll. If you don't learn something, you'll learn what not to do. So.
There you go. All right, man. Well, thank you very much. It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Aptitude Outdoors podcast. If you're getting anything out of this, if you're learning something, if it's helped you in any way, go down in the link below and buy me a coffee. Throw me $1, throw me $2. We greatly appreciate it. Just using it to keep this ship afloat. So thank you very much.